Let's get things going, Lowery, because we've got a great guest to talk a little college baseball with tonight.
The one and only Ty Harrington.
Ty, it is so good to see you. I cannot believe it's been almost 3 years since you stepped down as head coach down at Texas State.
I'll tell you what, it's been an interesting 3 years, right? I mean, every once in a while we make choices and decisions that take us different paths and do different things in our life. I told the story a little bit this morning to somebody that doing the TV and radio for baseball has brought back a little bit more, reignited my love for baseball again. I never lost the love for it. It just, different things in life pull us different ways, different reasons, multiple things. Yeah. And I've enjoyed so much being a part of doing podcasts, doing TV, and doing some radio with baseball. And like David Lowery, I love to talk about baseball. And so I enjoy it. And I'm happy and proud you guys invited me to be a part of this. And it has been 3 years, but it's been a quick 3 years. I will say that.
Yeah. Was there any time? Luckily, you had COVID at one time, not you personally, but there was that COVID season.
Yeah.
But otherwise, was there any time where you really, really missed the game? Maybe it was during Omaha, or it was like, oh gosh, it's terrible, I'm not back there.
Yeah, it was in Omaha actually. I went to Omaha when Texas went this past year, and I missed it because I missed dreaming about it. Right. As kids, we grew up, all of us laying in bed, 3-2 count, bases loaded. And so Omaha was that bases loaded 3-2 count for me as a coach. And so when we got there and we were watching the games, I missed being able to dream about that. And so that was probably the first time that it really set in about that. But again, I get to be around the game, and I'm much more like, I will promise you this. In the eighth inning of a game, my stomach doesn't hurt nearly as bad as it used to. And so I still get nervous-ish, or I get anxiousness about the ending of a game, even if I'm calling the game. But I don't get I'm not as wrapped up in it, obviously, as I once was as a coach.
Well, the reason I even got together to do this, Mike, is because I was having to talk baseball every Monday with Ty anyway. I mean, he's calling me and he's doing Harge's show and he's doing this. And I go, hey, Barnes, we get Harrington together and just do a show. I mean, I'm sitting there trying to do business. I'm talking for 2 hours about, should he have made the pitching change? Would you have moved the fielders here? You like this guy? Is this guy hot? Is this guy not? So it's kind of how this all came about.
Well, hold on a second. Let me jump in for just 1 second. There was a lot of Monday conversations that were a little more one-sided than what David Lowery is leading us to believe. It was a lot of David trying to tell me about what he thought about the shifts and everything that was going on, and his more than highly qualified opinion about baseball, by the way. I do believe that. But it was he occasionally, I got to drop in a little bit of what I thought maybe was happening.
Okay, that's BS. That's not true.
That's not true. I know it's not.
But let me tell us funny stories. A couple of years ago, Texas State comes in to play Texas, and I'm looking, and they're wearing these throwback uniforms, which throwback uniforms are fine on occasion, but Todd it's like they've gotten in this deal where they made them their home or whatever, their uniforms or whatever. And they happen to be wearing them here on a Wednesday or Tuesday night. So I texted down thinking, well, he'll see this after the game going, hey, bro, you got to get some modern whites or some pinstripes or something. You can't wear the
you
throwback
called mustard.
every game. Huh?
Every game. Called them mustard.
It was a mustard colored, man. It was unbelievable. So I'm sitting there going, yeah, he'll see it after the game. It wasn't 30 seconds. I look up, and I'm in the suite, and I look down, and Ty goes to the front of the dugout and goes, oh, come on. He does, and he does like this. Like, you can stick that opinion where you want it, Lau. We're sticking with the mustard. So he did get rid of them the next year, though, I think. He got moved on.
Uniforms. They were really comfortable, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, they look pajamas. I mean,
they were. They really were. Hey, once I hit 50 in my coaching career, the uniforms became about what the kids wanted. Had nothing to do really with me anymore at that point in time. It became about what the kids wanted to wear and the most comfortable tennis shoes I could put on instead of coaching shoes. We all started coaching. We had these leather shoes on that were terrible as far as comfort. And then finally, about 3/4 of the way through my career, I'm going over to shake Augie's hand, and I look down at his feet, and he's wearing Nike sneakers. I mean, jogging sneakers. And I was like, huh. He goes, hey, babe, it's all about comfort. It's all about feeling good about yourself. Helps your confidence level. So I remember going back and telling that we were with Adidas. I remember going and calling our Adidas guy going, hey, can I get a pair of black, most comfortable tennis shoes you got? And they started saying from that moment on, it was all about comfort for me. If my stomach was going to hurt in the 8th inning, my God, my feet were going to be comfortable, and my uniform was going to feel good.
Now, Ty, did your stomach hurt as a player? Were you like that as a player?
Yeah, a little bit until I got into the flow of the game. After I got in the flow of the game, it wasn't like that. The part about coaching is the uncontrollable part of the game while it's going on. You make a handful of decisions, and really, if the game goes well, you don't make a ton of decisions. It's already pre-thought out or it's already pre-planned. So there's that uncontrollable part of the game that would yank at my stomach some. That is it. The leadoff guy got on in the 9th. You got a 1-run lead. Are they going to bleed a ball over? Those things that you couldn't control, or just different things like that started to get to me. Whereas a player, you're in there grinding and playing and talking smack to your teammates, the other team, yourself, whatever it may be. And but as a coach, there was so many different things that you were having to take on, right? Not just your position. Yeah. You were taking on everything else that was going on, and then some of the uncontrollables. Which as time goes on, we'll spend some time talking about, hopefully through this podcast. I've learned now that I've gotten out of the game. And so I have a little bit different view of it, right? I don't have win-loss. I don't have alumni. I don't have all these things, practice plan. I don't have all these things on top of my head. There's a freedom now to my thought that I'd lost at times because of sometimes when you're coaching, you have so many things pulling at you. And I've learned so many things, man. I had one of the most unbelievable conversations 2 weeks ago with Wayne Graham that is truly one for the books. And one of these days when we have time, David Pierce and Wayne Graham and I sat and watched practice, and the things that Coach Graham brought to that conversation were unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
And one of these days we have time, I'll enlighten you guys on it. I'm still just kind of like, oh, my gosh, this is what I was competing against. And I always knew he's one of the smartest guys, just like Coach Gus. People don't know, unless you spend a lot of time with Coach Gus, just how intelligent, not just baseball, how intelligent those gentlemen are. Mm-hmm. And Wayne is no different. He's the same way. Coach Gus was the same way. And I'm gonna throw one more in there that I thought was one of the more intellectual people I've ever been around, and that was Augie. Yeah. And all three of those men were really, really high intelligent people. And I remember thinking to myself every once in a while, I was like, holy man, I'm having to compete against this, that's high level stuff right there. And so it'll be fun as this thing goes on that we get a chance maybe to come back and talk about those things in the future.
Yeah. To touch on that a little bit, Street, James used to say, because I would notice how, when you could go to a ball game that Houston was in, but he wasn't in the game yet. It wasn't closer time yet. And you could talk with James just like we always talk. But as soon as Houston went in that game, it was, he was just locked in, forget conversations. In fact, sometimes you weren't paying attention, Houston went in. You knew he was in once James just went, Doug Hodo does the same thing. A good friend played with Ty, when little Doug comes in. And what James used to describe, and I think it's a lot like what Ty said about coaching. When you're coaching or you're just an observer or a parent, there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, you make decisions that are very important on the coaching end. But as a player, you can still do something about it. You can make a play. You can get a hit. You can draw a walk. So I think in the little bit of coaching I did, that's kind of, that was the difference. I got more. I wouldn't admit this, not to the kids, but those summer games, I'd get tight. I'm like, shit, I can't get a bat. I can't, catch the ball. I can't steal a base. I can't do anything, So you're almost helpless. And I think that's what Ty is saying a little bit of.
Yeah.
Players win. They do.
So Ty, without naming names, were there coaches that you didn't respect or get along with, and you didn't want to schedule them non-conference? And then there are others that, oh my gosh, kind of like how Gus was with Fraser and with Brock, where every year Arizona State, Miami for about 10 years straight, always playing them because he liked them. But I think there are coaches, high school and in college, that I don't really like them. I don't want to play them unless I want to play them so I can beat them because I don't like them.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
You don't have to name names if you don't want to.
You said I don't have to name names.
You don't
so
have to name names.
let me just say, for 90% of the college coaches in the world, it is really a tight-knit, competitive family.
Yeah.
We all have our ups and downs. We all have our competitive moments where we meet at home plate after a game and a handshake is, a little more gripped, a little tighter than what it was, things like that. But I would tell you that 90% of the coaches, I was fine with whoever, or I had at least had an idea of why we didn't get, maybe we didn't get along as much as I thought we could or should or whatever. Who knows, right? But there were a few that I didn't think respected the game.
Yeah.
And that was for me, that was bigger than a lot of the other things. I also think there were guys who didn't do it the right way, who may have skirted what regulations we had.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought there were guys like that, and I wouldn't play them. And so it didn't hurt them. I mean, but there were times, but it was rare. I got to be honest. It really was rare. Most everybody, the beauty of where we are in the great state of Texas, there's so many teams that we could play.
Yeah.
And there was just, and it was just, I always wanted to play as many teams as we could in the state. Our conference made us go outside the state some, but I just enjoyed playing trying to, match up with everybody in the state and go play. There weren't any of those in the state of Texas that I'm referring to. If there were, I'm sure there may have been early in my career or something like that when I was a junior college coach, when you were mad at everybody. But the reality is, when Division I wise, there wasn't. I truly, again, the coaching fraternity in baseball is really a pretty tight-knit group.
Ty, how has the game from the time we were players through your assistant coaching gigs, your JUCO gigs, your head 20, 21 years at Texas State gig, how has the game evolved and changed, the college game?
The technology would probably be at the forefront of a lot of it now. There's not a swing, a pitch. There's nothing that happens in a practice session anymore, game session, that you don't have at your fingertips with one click, similar to what we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. And so analytically and visual, this group of players are visual learners. Their schools, their education has brought them through a visual learning process where our visual was a chalkboard, right? And that's a little different visual. And so the technology would be first. I would say that the types of facilities have changed. Their way, which good for you, David Lowery. The turf business has evolved the game. I think it's made it a better defensive game, a cleaner game. Kids have learned how to play on turf as they're coming up now through all these summer leagues and high schools. Again, you could refer to that as maybe technology some, I guess. But I think the mentality of trying to create young men into a team aspect is a little bit different than what it was. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying kids aren't being brought up right, but they have so much noise in their ears today because of social media. They can touch one key and gain information, right or wrong, right? And so you're fighting as a coach. Used to they only really listen to you, maybe their dad and some of their summer league coach or the high school coach, right? That had helped them along the way, and rightfully so. They'd had success with them, so there's a comfort with them. Now you got a lot of people in their ears, and good, bad, or indifferent, some people, I hope they can understand this, trying to get kids to have their eyes on you when you're conversating with them means so much, because now that means that your information is getting into them, right? And not everybody else's. So the hard part is the amounts of noise that these guys have, all athletes have around them today, and the amount of attention that's paid to them has changed dramatically. You had to go and you wait for the Saturday or Sunday paper to come out. Or if you every once in a while you turn on channel 24, the Barnes standing there and he would tell you the score of the game, on a Saturday.
On that topic, has it been good, bad? And I know the answer probably is going to be a little bit of both.
Oh, I think it's just life. I mean, I think, again, we were driving vehicles 25, 30 years ago, didn't have automatic windows. And so now all of a sudden, life has changed. The world evolves. So college baseball has to go with it. Whether I think it's good, bad, or indifferent doesn't matter. What I think it is just that the game is changing. I like the idea that the game changes some because that means it's important. People are putting emphasis on it. If people didn't think the game was important, then it wouldn't evolve, right? And so you have to take it for what I think it means is it's important to a lot of people. So we're plugging in millions of dollars of technology now. People realize that there's a way to make a living, with this kind of thought process for technology and all these kinds of things. So I think that part of it is great. There's that many people that love college baseball, and more. If we create a better platform every day for people to watch, hear, listen, learn, and be a part of college baseball, it's going to continue to grow. And for me, that's probably the most important piece that you get out of it. Now, if you're going to ask me, which I know this is going to come up, because I got off the phone with Tim Tadlock yesterday, Matt Deggs this afternoon, Skip Johnson this morning. And just naming, I'm kind of name dropping, truthfully. And so if you name if you put all these coaches I've spoken to in the last 2 weeks, and you ask each of them, which I did, and I'm not going to reveal their answers because I don't think it's completely fair for me to do it and speak for them. But I asked, hey, what are your thoughts about the transfer portal? How do you guys really feel about it? Right. So that's a game changer. The NIL, those two things right now have got college athletics in a little bit of not a frazzle, but a little bit of my personal feelings is that how do you get on the right side of the portal? How do you get on the right side? What I mean by that is how do you keep your kids that you have that you're coaching hard and demanding things from them? How do you keep them on the right side of your portal? And then how do you maintain being on the right side of the portal of gaining kids? So how do you do that? People can think that that's not a big piece. They're not involved with college baseball on an everyday basis. That's not reality, because it is. And so how do you deal with that as a coach? How do you demand something from a young person and really reach in there, try to get it from him? Sometimes he's never understood what somebody pushing him to get to be his ultimate best, right? And you got to push people. We all need to be pushed as humans to get the most out of us. And it's hard to do that sometimes when a kid can all of a sudden put his name, go, bloop, I'm in the portal, I'm out, right? Or he may not be out. We don't even know, right? And then it's public and it's social. So everybody knows, and right, the coffee shop and at the donut shop knows now that you put your name in the portal. So all those things have changed. I don't particularly think it's great for the game yet, but it's here. So how do you deal with it?
You're an old timer like Lowery and me, and you remember the old days where in baseball you could transfer.
That's correct.
And not sit out. So what's the difference between those old days and now?
That's a good question.
So the difference, it's not
with baseball specifically.
Yeah, with baseball.
Yeah. So here's the difference.
Scholarship sports. Yeah.
So in college baseball, when it was the one-time transfer rule, right? It was a little bit of the Wild West. We benefited from it at Texas State, Southwest Texas. That tells you how far back ago that was.
Yeah.
The difference was you had to go through hoops to do it. You had to go to your coach and you had to request a transfer. You could a release, right? And you couldn't even talk to another coach. Now I know everybody was skirting around that, I'm sure, but you had to ask for permission to visit with another team. Then you had to go request a release transfer, and then you had to. So it was still regulated by the university, the athletic department, the coach. So there was discussion. There was you had to go through some hoops. It wasn't always comfortable to do that. And so it just wasn't easy. Right. And so I think nowadays it's so simple. I think they go to the computer basically and put their name in there.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't, and I know kids are doing it without even telling their coaches. And so, there was a difference. But you remember they did away with that rule for a reason.
Yeah. I remember talking to Augie about it, and he was a little worried about it because it was harder to get players coming in. Yeah,
and so I think, look, I got no problem if a kid doesn't like it. I think he needs to have the option to leave. Sure. I do. I think that's okay. I mean, but you have an option if you don't like your job. You have an option to leave if you want. I respect that train of thought. I just think there needs to be a little bit of a process for everybody to feel comfortable at the end of the game. The kid gets what he needs. The coaches and the program that have invested in them get what they need. And so I think there needs to be a process in there. I don't know what that looks like, right? Maybe they could go back to kind of the way it was. Maybe that, made it. But again, if a kid's not happy, ultimately you're not going to probably make him happy. He's going to, the one that probably is a challenge for you is the one that you spend 3 years developing. And then he walks in your office and says, Coach, it's always been my dream to go play it wherever that is. And then it so happens that there's shortstops missing. That's reality today. Yeah. I mean, honest to goodness, that's reality. And whether it's right or wrong, that's not for me to judge. And whether I think it was right or wrong today, it's not for me to judge. It's what the coaches are having to deal with today. That's the part where, as a coach, when you talk to Matt Daggs, who really demands a lot, and all these coaches I mentioned earlier, all of them do. Coach Pierce the same way. But when you demand a lot, sometimes it kind of, kids kind of like, whoa, I didn't, wait a minute, what? That's different than, and tough love is tough love. There's times we all packed our lunchbox, right? And walked away from mom and dad, and your dad handed you your lunchbox and you said, I'm leaving, I'm running away. And he handed you your lunchbox and said, go get them, kid. You knew, your dad knew you were going to walk down the street, eat your sandwich, and turn around and come right back. But there was tough love involved in this. And so that part of it is a challenge, I think, for some of the college coaches. And I think it's a challenge for college players. And I wish all of them could hear this. It's a challenge for them also to find the right spot and the right place for them to enjoy their career. It really is. They have an option now to explore the portal if it doesn't work out to where they thought, man, I thought it was going to be different. I respect that. But it's a challenge for a young person too to stick in there and sit a year, right? Learn for a year. If as a freshman, to sit in there and hold in there and get your sparing playing time and be and learn the loyalty to your teammates and all those kinds of things. If you like the program, right, and if you like your teammates and love your teammates. I think it's a great learning experience because you could get in that portal if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. So at times it's about choice. Like life's about choices and making good choices. And if somebody's tempting us with something different, we have to be able to kind of learn through it. And I think it makes coaches work harder to respect their players. I truly do. Hey man, you go in there and you mistreat a kid now. He's like punches on, puts his name in a button. I'm out, man. Yeah. I don't have to go run 27 miles tomorrow.
I think the biggest thing for fans to remember or to realize is that it used to be possible to transfer. Not that it was that easy, right. But I remember when Texas got Jay Searcy to play third base in '86, coming down from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
it could happen. It's just it wasn't as prevalent and looked upon the way it is now.
And I know in the old days, and I won't mention any coaches either. Ty, you're probably going to know. I know that there were trades going on between certain schools and maybe D2s or some D3s. There were actual trades, but we're laughing about that. But I think you're going to see some more of that too. I think it's kind of legal, so to speak, now.
Yeah, there were days when programs would let kids transfer that you would. I'm not saying I did. I'm not saying I didn't. But you would tell them, hey, look, if he transfer here, I won't play him against you when we play it, or something like that.
Or hey, we got so-and-so, and he's behind Jimmy Joe and All-American. This guy hit 30 home runs. Your pitcher's really evolved. We could use him on Sunday. And, that next thing you know, Joey's over here and Jimmy's over there. And so, it happened. It's kind of a good coach.
I'm going to tell you this, and most of the coaches that I've spoken to about this all will tell you that they look at it as kind of like, man, how do we deal with this? Because if we don't get involved with it, somebody else is, right? So a kid jumps in a portal. Somebody got mad that a kid was in the portal already, and you aggressively get in there and you watch it every day. If you're not doing it and you get behind, you're going to get your butt beat.
Yeah. It's free agency now. It's college free agency. They're just going to adapt, and the good ones will figure out a method or a process for them that works. In football, Saban's already on the process. They will. The good coaches, they'll figure that out. Let's hit on NIL specifically. Good, bad, or both for college baseball?
Unknown. Now, I think it's great for the players.
I do too.
Oh, sure.
Now, I'm I'm a big advocate for if college baseball players. Are you kidding me? 11.7 scholarships,
Right.
over
I
35
agree.
guys, and now you've got a
Totally
chance.
agree.
Hey, look, my parents were school teachers, and
I agree.
for them to have had, if I would have been able to had an extra, $1,500 a month, or I don't know what that going rate is. It's probably similar to that to some places. To have that would be huge for my family. And for me as an individual, and not going up to the pulse machine at the end of the night, fixing going on a date, wondering if I had $20 still left in my account when I hit my numbers. And so I think it's important for college baseball players. How do we manage that? How do they manage that is going to be, something I think everybody's going to learn over the next year or two. And because legally, I don't think anybody really knows what this looks like yet. I think we're tiptoeing through it right now. But if I'm some of the bigger schools, traditional schools, and I've got deeper pockets than you, those people are going to find ways to use it to their advantage. And why not? It's about winning.
Well, the first time I when they said, hey, NIL is coming, the first thing baseball wise, I thought, oh, good. This is going to even the playing field because, as you know, Ty, and all of this, it's no secret in baseball, but a lot of fans might not know, is Vanderbilt, as wonderful a job as they've done there and as good as they've been for 20 years. They've been playing with funny money. That's kind of the phrase used in baseball. LSU kind of invented it. They got some funny money. The in-state kids could get books, tuition fees paid for the state. He'd use his 11.7 to cherry pick, blah, blah, blah. And so you had an imbalance there with a lot of the SEC schools. So this will now make that an equal playing field. That's my opinion.
It's not funny money. It's
funny money, Ty. They were very creative and they stayed within the rules.
It's special needs. When I say special, so my parents my income from my family's household, if I would have gone to a private school, I would have qualified for a lot of scholarship. So one thing, you're helping a kid, but from a scholarship perspective, yes, it did give you a chance to go get players, and it didn't count against your 11.7. Perfectly legal. It's the way the system was set up for private schools to have a chance.
Price was never on baseball scholarship. So
right. I mean, Ty Harrington would have gone to Vanderbilt. It would have been the same way. Even I think maybe even Rice and some other private schools, it would have been the same way because my parents didn't make that kind of money, right, that you would qualify for. And then the other parts of this too. I mean, you got to go back and look. Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia. The majority of these SEC type schools, they all had Hope scholarships where if you qualified and you made a 3.0, if you made a certain score on your ACT or SAT, you automatically had your books, tuition, and fees paid for, and it did not count against the 11.7.
And it was a very minimal score too. It wasn't like you had to be a rocket scientist to,
Well, maybe not, but I probably wouldn't have made that scholarship. I would have had a better chance at the other kind than that one. But the reality is that there were advantages to that. And so back to your statement, David, about does it level the playing field? It levels the playing field for the schools, the traditional big schools that have the resources probably, and not necessarily the schools that have the resources, the interest, right? The people around the programs who can, and again, the legal side of this is yet to be challenged.
Back to the funny money comment. I was not being critical of the SEC or Vandy. I was actually giving kudos for them being creative. To get more money into the guys' pockets. And it wasn't to make them billionaires. It was to make them whole where they could get their school paid for and play baseball. So I wasn't knocking them. And it seemed like those schools were more creative than we were. I mean, for years, we just went on our 11.7. There may be a few things. I know when we went in the SEC, even as the NIL was going, they came up with a scholarship. I know now all the kids in all of the sports are getting an academic scholarship at Texas, getting a little more funding in there. And that's important. People don't realize that besides football and basketball, these are partial scholarship sports. And as Ty said, you got a lot of middle-class, blue-collar type families. And, that's a burden, So hopefully the NIL will help make that whole, So
you go for 40 grand. It was going to cost, 40 grand, 50 grand, almost up to 100 at times for kids to get all the way through college.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it's expensive these days. But I'm curious about you two as former players. Would there be competitiveness, jealousy if you found out, if you found out that Todd Haney and Kobe Curlin are making X amount of dollars in NIL and you're not making anything, or you're making very little, or if David Tollison and Clay King are making a lot and Lowery, you're making little, is there going to be friction in the clubhouse because of that when it's exposed or it's announced or it's reported about these high dollar NIL deals?
I think there's gonna be the potential for that certainly exists. That's human nature. What they're not used to yet in a college dugout or a college locker room, unlike a professional locker room, professionals are used to it. That's a way of life. That is their way of life.
Yeah.
So they're used to that. The guy gets paid more because he plays quarterback, whatever that might look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
But college is not used to that. So that potential for that kind of emotion is always going to be there.
Yeah.
And that's a job for the coach to have to try to, manage, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be hard on some of those coaches to manage some of that. I do think there's always that chance that you got one kid who's upset that may say something after a kid who maybe he's getting more NIL money, has a bad week or a bad night or bad whatever it is, right? And he goes back, well, I guess he's, whatever. I think that potential is always is going to be there. And again, I don't think anybody knows because this is all so new and it happened so fast. The NCAA, in my mind, made a mistake, not by allowing it, but they could have eased us into this. And I think they could have made some steps looking far enough down the road instead of just opening Pandora's box saying, go get them, all the way. Now, again,
no
I'm
regulation at all, basically.
Right.
Yeah, and again, I'm happy for the players. Believe me, when I tell you,
yeah.
they need to get what they. I certainly appreciate that, and certainly in for college age kids who are putting kids in the people in the fans and all that kind of stuff. I'm for them. I truly am. I just think it could have been done in increments, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have helped because nobody knows.
You mentioned the pros, and in the old days of the pros, before the Major League Baseball Players Association came around, it was very secretive what players made, and owners would tell different players lies about it, and then there'd be jealousy about, oh, he makes more than me, and that's one of the reasons why it came out in the open and they made it public so that the owners couldn't play that game anymore. So I just worry that as competitive as some players are, especially really good players, that's why they're good, because they're so competitive. Think about Lowery. We know him so well. He would be so upset if he knew that a certain player was making more than he was, as good of a hitter as Lowery was.
Yeah.
And
well,
that's true, Lowery.
I was thinking about that when I noticed I shut up on that, because if you'd have come to me and said, hey, Dressendorfer's, I'm just throwing a number, making $1 million, said, my God, give him 1.5. Just, keep him going back out there.
That's Dress as a pitcher. But if you take anybody of the 9 on the field and you think, I'm a better hitter than him.
You go, hey, wait a minute. Well, yeah, you probably would. Yeah, Ty's right. It could cause some issues.
Yeah.
Well, I think you would say, I've known David for a long time. I think David in his own mind would say something to himself. And I don't think he would have made it a locker room issue.
No,
I do know that.
All my goofiness, I was about the team, but I think it would maybe eat at you internally,
or had a private conversation with somebody else.
That's
but
right.
I think they would have brought it to the locker room,
right?
And that's the different. We don't know what that dynamic is going to be like right now. I think coaches are all trying to find out what that really is going to be. I mean, each of the coaches that I've spoken with, when you bring it up, they're like, man, we don't know really what it's going to be like yet. We're all just trying on the shoes for the first time. Yeah. And so I do think that there's going to be some regulation brought forth as this thing goes on. I think there'll be some things that I don't know about regulations, but I think there'll be some guidelines that they're going to try to use much more so than what is out there currently right now. Look, we've watched college athletics since the way back in the day, right? When, people were standing outside of somebody's mailbox, putting money in their mailbox back in the day that, I'm not saying anybody particularly did it, but I'm just saying that.
Do we need to check your mailbox up in Waco?
No, it wasn't in Waco. I can assure you that. I can promise you it wasn't. It wasn't at my house. It may have been in somebody else's house, but there all those days of. So we've proven that when you open a door like it's been opened, we're going to rush it, right? We're going to push it to the limits, right? Mm-hmm. Historically, and give credit to the SEC and other conferences, big conferences, they push everything to the limit.
They
Look,
do.
and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to win, then you got to put your best foot forward to go win. You can't sit back. And I'm not saying cheat. That's not it. I'm saying they're going to push it, and they're going to continue to push it.
Yep.
So that's why I think I think there will be some guidelines that kind of get pulled in a little bit. I don't know. Again, I can't see the crystal ball clear enough to tell you what that looks like. I do think that there's a possibility in the future that maybe NIL and the portal go hand in hand to some degree. How do you manage both of those, or are they connected or something like that? But my point is that we've proven as a human race, and particularly in athletics, that anything competitive, if you give us a guideline, we're going to push right up to that guideline nonstop. And then you're going to have some that try to push beyond that guideline because they want to win. And when they open this door, man, they just, a lot of people ran through there with their eyes wide open going, what do we do now? How do we keep moving forward with this?
Lowry's still thinking about what he'd do.
I know he is.
No, I was just thinking about the mailbox money for Ty. That they wouldn't have left like $50K for Ty. They just put like $1,000 in some hair care product. That's what Ty was hoping for.
Hair care products and Copenhagen snuff, and I would have been fine back in the day, right? In all honesty. And to answer your original question, would I have been upset if Kobe Curlin or Todd Haney was making more money than I was? To answer your question, I would not have been, because they were both better hitters than I was. So I got to be honest with you, I didn't really have a leg to stand on that one.
Oh, you're counting yourself short there.
Yeah, they don't pay a whole lot of money for a seventh inning defensive replacement to go in the game.
But you were a great seventh inning defensive replacement.
I was. No, I loved it.
Defense. He's
I appreciate everything, every moment I got out there. But
that's right.
Man, there wasn't a whole lot of. There wouldn't have been a whole lot of NIL people standing out there. I might have got like a Rolaids contract or something like that for being at the end of the game. Something that have been.
Big Doug and I have been involved a little bit with kind of how it's going to be structured, the NIL for baseball at Texas, Ty, and the way you're describing it, it's really like no one totally knows the rules, and can you put it in a 5013C, and can you do this? But I know the general plan of the group is to make it whole. It's not right as of now. I'm not saying it won't get to that. It's not about making guys millionaires right now. I mean, that again, maybe to keep a guy from the draft. That's another thing I want to go into. But to finish this original thought, it's just how do we make these guys? How do we make the guy that's getting books and tuition and fees get him enough money in his pocket to pay for his room and board, and maybe have a couple $100 spending money to take a date out or go to dinner or something? That's kind of the goal. How do we get 30 guys that we can do that? 30, 35, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
I don't
know
the goal.
I do think that they're through this process. I don't know that too many people are going to like what I'm going to say when I say this. I think there is an outside chance. No, I think there's a chance that this is going to be this could be a little bit of a divide between, conferences and programs, in all honesty. And, resources and interest have always driven college athletics. It's just the way it is. And so I'm a little fearful for some other schools that don't have, I don't know. I mean, I do think
mid-major type schools that might not have the resources.
Yeah.
Which is the original reason they put in the 11.7. If I'm not.
It was. That was part of it. It was 13. It was 15. Then it went to 13, and then it went to 11.7.
Right. And it was try to get parity, and now they basically thrown that out again. So.
Yeah. And again, I don't know all the rules. Right. So I don't know how involved the universities can really be. I don't know that yet. And I know pieces of this thing, and I don't want to act on this show like I know all of it. I don't. And I just think that it's here to stay. The people who, the programs and that can benefit from it, I think they're going to separate themselves from some other ones who probably can't benefit from it. I think that's just the way it is. Going back to originally, David, what you said, how do I think the game has evolved and how I think it's changed? This is probably the two at the mountaintop right now that, college athletics in general, not just baseball, college athletics themselves are having to deal with. And it's certainly, hey, when you turn on the news or you pick up the phone and read the news like I do and you guys do every day, and you pick it up and it's national news, if somebody hit the portal, that tells you a little bit about what this means.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap things up and tell us about, or you tell us what you're looking for in this baseball season, because you're the baseball expert more than anybody.
Man, I tell you what, it is going to be, and no offense to David Lowery, who was a tremendous player, and he played on some unbelievable teams. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I said it a little bit last year, and I think it came true in my mind, and I know it's going to come true this year. This will be the most matured and exciting college baseball season you have ever seen if you love baseball, for all that it really is. The ins and outs of it, the every inning of it, the every pitch of it, the beauty of running the bases, the beauty of being able to drive runners in the right way and execute the game the way it was set out to be, to enjoy the parts of the analytics, all those things. This year will be at its finest in college baseball, because there's nothing good about COVID. There's nothing. But what it did is it created an older class in college baseball. And it created a chance for a 23-year-old and a fifth year. There's going to be kids out there playing that have been in college baseball for half a decade or over.
Yeah.
Which you never saw 6 years.
Think about that. Think about what the maturity of those young men are as people, and think about the maturity of who they are as a baseball player. Those guys should have been playing in A-ball or double-A even. And right now it's going to be celebrated, the idea that they're going to be playing college baseball. And I look for this to be one of the most well-played and one of the most exciting games. I don't think people are going to walk out of too many, highly contested games where they walk out there and go, man, that was terrible. That was the worst baseball I've ever seen. I really don't see it. I think it's going to be the most exciting season we've had in college baseball in the history of college baseball.
Because
quick rundown.
I was going to say, because all the players getting the extra year because of COVID and because of fewer draft picks. Baseball, the combination of the two, it makes it older. But will it ever catch back up, or will we stay like this where we have older classes year after year after year?
Man, I hate to say this, but NIL is going to affect that.
Yeah.
And NIL is going to affect it, because you're going to see kids that would have signed for $20,000 going, I'm going back to school. I'm going to finish. I'm going to make $20,000. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. That 30-round draft pick and that 20th round draft pick at a mid-majors or at a major is going to go, I'm just going to go back to school for my senior year. Yeah. And so I do think it's going to change. Obviously, we're going to evolve out of the COVID era where kids got that extra year. But I think anytime you get something to a really high mature level, then every piece that goes with it is going to maintain some of that maturity. So moving forward, I think college baseball is going to be that way. I do. I think it's going to be played at a higher level than it's been played in a long time. And for guys who are true lovers, people, I'm sorry, not excluding women out of this, people that are true lovers of the game of baseball and the inside pieces of the baseball game that are an intricate part of it, make it so beautiful. It's going to be over this next year and over the next 2 years, and it's going to be really, really exciting. You're going to see it firsthand in Austin, Texas. I'm going to tell you that. That group is as mature and as laser focused and well coached, and every piece that you can put together right now going into it. That doesn't mean it's going to end that way, but going into it, that group is locked and loaded.
They can pound the strike zone and they can catch the baseball.
Boy, I'm going to tell you, people, and Lowery loved to hit way more. I mean, he didn't much care to get out there and take many fungos, but I'm going to tell you something. The idea, they have redefined it, I think, in Austin about making defense being sexy again. Those guys can wheel that baseball around, and it is some kind of fun to watch them. And that outfield not only takes hits away, they take runs away. They steal your heart away, because remember, probably a fourth, if not over the fourth of the runs, maybe even half the runs are scored in extra base hits. But when you have outfielders that can run like that and can take hits away and take momentum away, not only runs away, but momentum away like that, man, you start breaking people's hearts, and you start to kind of deteriorate their will in the middle of the game without them even knowing it.
Solidifying a Friday night guy. I'm hearing they're going to go with Sweet Pete tomorrow night. Go with the Wit on Sunday. You like it?
Yeah, I love it, man. Let me tell you what, that kid can kill that guy can crush the triangle. And what I mean by that, the pitching strike zone now is defined in triangles. Or at least for me it is. The inner half, the outer half, but now you've got to be able to capitalize the top of the triangle because of all the analytics they're trying to teach people, the lift and the bat and do different things. So if you can occupy the top half of the triangle, which he can do, then you've got the complete guy. He's incredibly efficient, which you have to be on Friday night, right? A la Greg Swindell, where you went out and at 95 pitches, even though he was a strikeout pitcher, at 100 to 110 pitches in the ninth inning, he was still efficient with his pitches. And if you watch the way Zeke went at it, he struck all of his guys out in the first 6 innings. And then he efficiently pitched his way the rest of the way through the game. You're going to see the same thing. What Hansen has the ability to do also, he can command both sides of the plate. And for a right-handed hitter, he does something to you that you don't like. He puts that ball right inside of you. And when you're taught to get up on the plate, take the outer half of the plate away, he comes roaring that thing back in on you.
He crowds you. All right.
That's right. And he puts a lot of pressure on that hip. And then he does the next thing to you. He runs that breaker off that same line right into your back foot, and you swing right over the top of it. And you watch how many guys he strikes out the first time through the order, or the first, maybe the second time through the order that he faces guys.
He can change eye levels and all that. I mean, I'm a big Hansen fan, and I know a lot of people in the camp kind of maybe wanted Witt because he's your traditional power guy, and I'm like, hey, don't forget about Hansen. Hansen can really pitch a baseball. Reminds me of Swindell that he can just pitch. He's got plenty of power. He's low 90s. That's fine, but he's not going to overpower you. But he can really pitch. And go up, down, in, out, just like you're talking. He knows what he's doing out there. So
he's a quiet competitor with the seams of those baseballs.
He's a money guy. Look at all the money games he came through. Every game down the stretch last year, you stuck him in money down. He was money down the stretch. And I think Stevens got a little tired down the stretch. And I think he's on a mission this year to really prove that last month to be the kind of guy he can be too, because I like him. I think he can really pitch. I just think
that guy didn't miss a start. That guy.
That's what I'm saying.
Win. Look, let me tell you how you win series. You win series on Saturdays on that pivotal game when you're going one way or another, right? And when you got a guy out there that, whether it's Saturday or even Sunday, I always say you win it on Sunday in the 5th inning on. But that guy was he's another guy. He's so efficient. And when his changeup is really running hard away from left-handed hitters, he's a great matchup on left-handed hitters, which if you're a right-handed guy, more times than not, college baseball, 3 out of the 5 tough hitters you got to get out are left-handed. So you have to have something that runs away from a left-handed hitter.
It counters that.
Get him out. Right. Yeah, and he certainly can do that. And I think the thing that they're excited about finding out is with Witt, that guy was crazy good for 6 outs, 9 outs on a weekend. So you got to go replace those 9 outs on the back end. They feel really good about some of their guys going back there. And the guy, to me, and of course, Cantoni, I thought was really good last year. I really did. I thought that guy was
I thought he got healthier and healthier down the stretch. It was really big the last month. Really,
he did. But the guy, to me, man, that showed me so much. I went to Fort Worth on a Friday night to watch Texas and TCU. Witt kind of got overexcited a little bit, and they had to go get him. He was unbelievable in the 8th. I mean, they had no chance against him. Went back out in the 9th. He might have gone walk. I can't remember for sure. Walk, hit back, something like that. And TCU's got nobody out, runners on first and second. And Nick was rolling in there, protecting a 1-run lead. He went punch out, ground out, punch out, ground out, game over, see you. And I'm telling you what, for a freshman, I was standing there amongst a bunch of TCU people, and I was going, what I really want to say, I'm not going to say on this podcast right now. But I'm going to tell you right now, he let it. I was so impressed with his emotion and his command and his ability to command his emotion at that moment and command the baseball. And those seams that day were phenomenal. And that guy's a quiet, really quiet, competitive guy that goes out there and just, you don't always just mark it down because he doesn't have crazy stats. If you go in there, it's a little bit less than a hit an inning, or maybe it is a hit inning. But he keeps coming at you. And so that's what you want in the 9th inning. And so, and then the offensive side of this team, to get through a lineup, to mark a great team, which you watched Texas last year, it was so hard for any team pitching-wise to get through their lineup 4 times.
Yeah.
You could get through it twice. That 3rd time, they started to grind on you, and you would see a walk pop up, right? And then you would see another walk pop up, or a hit batsman, or you would see a single back to the right side or a double back to the right side, where they were addressing what they had to do to adjust to get to you.
Yeah, good adjustments.
And then they would get you late, because on that 4th and 5th at bat, they just keep coming at. There was no letdown in the order. And so they would get to you, and then they would get ahead of you, and then here came those last 9 outs with those 2 freshmen. I mean, and it was a great recipe for success.
Well, and where that comes offensively, I think it's going to be even better this year, is the guys for the first time in years around here, guys went to the plate. I'd count the plague year when the COVID hit, the first 17 games, and then carried on, and you saw it grow offensively last year. They have a game plan when they go to the plate. They've sent each, it can be different for each guy, but those guys are going up there with an approach and a game plan and a clue of what they're trying to do. And I think you saw that evolve. And I think all those guys, as Ty said, are back. They're very mature and back. And I think it's going to be impressive to watch if it plays out like it should. As he said, you never know, it's baseball, but those guys have solid years. I mean, it could be a very good year around Dish. Really
I'll tell you what Coach Pierce does. And I've known David a really long time. Outside of being an incredibly competitive person. I mean, like really competitive. But what he does is he recognizes what each individual that he has on that lineup or on that team or on that mound, he knows what they're capable of doing. And he knows what they can succeed at. He doesn't ask them to do something outside of that. He expects them to do what they're capable of doing, and he puts them in that moment and puts them in that situation and allows them to succeed at it over and over and over. And I think he's done an incredible job. He takes the game for what it is giving him at that moment, and he utilizes it through his players, and he gives them a chance to succeed at it. And I think he is really good at it. I want you guys to remember something. Tennessee Tech, I think, is what it was, whoever it was, right? The first year that David and went to Omaha, that year that Clemens was just out of control. Great.
Yeah. And no one would walk him. I never figured that out. No one would walk him. But yeah, it's crazy.
Right. So they got to win one game to go to move on. Right. They get to the ninth inning, and they still got the 3-quarter guys. His name draw me, and they had a crazy last name for Texas. He was their Sunday starter, or 4th starter, and he gets into trouble, or our guy gets into trouble in the 9th inning. And instead of waiting and going, oh, that's my starter for tomorrow, in case if we have, he goes, no, we're winning right now. Mm-hmm. Guy comes in, goes pop fly, ground ball, double play, game over. Here we go. Yeah. So to me, that tells you he's trying to win today. He's not worried about.
Don't wait for tomorrow.
We're gonna go. We're gonna go do this today, right? Yeah. And I like Cliff Gustafson did the same thing many times. Augie did the same thing many times. And it takes guts to pull that trigger, right? And it takes knowledge to pull that trigger and a belief in your players to do that. And he did that. And David does a really good job of doing that. For me, everybody's got a different opinion, I'm sure, but for me, he does.
Real quick, next show, we'll go over more of the Texas, the lineup and stuff. But I want to hit on, before we leave, TCU, Sarlos, and A&M, Schlossnagle. What do you see this year from those teams?
Well, for TCU, really quick. So for TCU, it's all about them transitioning to Sarlos, right? It's not – do they – and again, I don't think that he's going to do any – I don't think Coach Sarlos is going to do anything crazy to change it. They were winning. Right. So they have a recipe that works. Now you got a different personality at the top of that recipe. And he'll do things different than Jim. I'm sure our personalities are always different. But it's going to be how they transition to his communication. I think he'll do great. Now, if you've never been around him, he's a tremendous baseball guy. Holy cow. I mean, you're going to come out of a conversation going, wow, that's pretty impressive. And which is why he's the head coach there now. Jim doesn't have the talent right now, the A&M that he's going to have. And you give that guy 2 years or year and a half, and he'll hustle it in there. That guy is a CEO of a company. He is very regimented in thought. He is very thought out, smart, intellectual, like we talked about earlier. And a guy who sticks to what he believes in, and it works. His recipe works.
He's a great CEO. He's always had great men underneath him, 1 and 2 assistants. Did he do that again at A&M?
Yep. No, he didn't. Okay. He did. Now, I think it's unrealistic to expect that they're going to go to Omaha this year. I think that's to be a challenge for him, particularly in that conference. He hasn't had enough time to recruit. I mean, that transaction happened later. Remember, and then I just think that was going to be a hard for him to that kind of change to take that team. Now, you look up a year from now, 2 years from now, and I think you're going to see something totally different. I believe that Jim Schlosslingo is a great he's one of the true innovators of our game, by the way.
Wow.
He truly is in college baseball.
And real quick, anybody else, mid-majors in the state, or anybody from the Baylor, kind of quick rundown on anybody else, Lamar's, Texas State?
So Baylor, and let's stick in the Big 12 for a second. Baylor's going to be better. Rigney's back on the mound. McKenzie's going to be a great player. If that kid can really, really hit. And so Baylor's going to be a better team. You know, they were one game away, probably win last year from being in regional. I had an argument that they could have been or should have been too. And so Steve and those guys have got to do a good job this year, and I think they will. Tadlock at Tech, who I talked to the other day, I asked Tim, I said, and I've known Tim, we broke in together, and as old junior college coaches together. I said, all right, tell me, what do you got? He said, in his old, don't let that slow West Texas draw fool you either. That's one smart
Tadlock? Oh, he's
one smart little dude right there now.
Real
But
smart.
He just said, he goes,
I
hey.
forgot Tadlock because I know they're going to be good every year.
That's right. He said,
sorry,
they had
Tim.
3 kids. They had 3 players turn down Major League Baseball freshmen. He goes, our freshman class might be the best we've had.
Wow.
That's a huge statement from that guy. That is a huge statement. He's got guys back. You know, I mean, his arms are back. You know, he lost his 2 best arms right before the season.
They don't have another one of those young brothers or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
My God. I know they got the one coming back, but good Lord. I mean.
No, he's coming back, and then they've got that
whole family. I mean, how many are there? I mean.
Well, I think this, for everybody in the Big 12, this is going to be their last year, the last one.
God almighty. I mean,
you like to hope that is. Anyway, he's going to play a shortstop that played center field. He's played second base. He's pitched, he's played first base, and he's going to land in there and play shortstop for this bunch every game. And so he was excited about him. He had, they've had some kids that have transferred in that they feel really good about. But sometimes I don't always feel like Tech gets the recognition they really deserve and what Tim's done out there.
Well, I think in the baseball world they do, but maybe not in the
right.
Media
Those guys
world.
have been in Omaha 4 out of the last 6 years, I think, or something like that, right? And they just out on the high plains, man, they have figured it out. And Tim has won everywhere he's been. He won national championships at Grayson. And there are a lot of things I'd love to see. And as a Texas fan, when we move to the SEC, I can publicly say it then, I guess. But I pull for Tim at some point in time to win a national championship because I know how much he puts into it and how good he is and how good a coach he is and what he's done out there. I don't hope it's at the cost of UT by any stretch. I will say that. And so – but I pull for him. I do as a person. And then, I do think that if you look at I almost said Southwest Conference. I did say Southwest Conference. Actually, if you look at the Big 12 and what it looks like, it's power arms. If I told you, hey, you're going to go watch Skip Johnson and OU, what's the very first thing that's going to come to your brain? Power arms. And he has got a bunch of them. And when he tells you, when I asked him, I said, what's your best thing about your club? Our pitching depth. I was like, oh, that's weird. And everywhere he's been, he's had a ton of great arms. He does such a great job of developing, arms. And he was really excited about the arms that they've got. And then there's the Graham kid moved over to shortstop. That kid was one of my favorite players that I watched when he was 15 years old. And ironically in Lubbock. And that kid was my favorite player in the state of Texas that year. And he moved from third over to short. He's a great player. The little skinny kid has grown up and to be a man, and he's going to hit some home runs and do some great things. Treadaway, which you'll recognize the name, and as a baseball legacy, his dad used to be the coach. His grandfather was a coach at Pan Am for a long time, and as an assistant. Where Skip played. And so, but all those teams, and I didn't even mention Oklahoma State. And
they're going to be good. They're going to be good, I think. They're going to be really good.
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, Larry. I'm going to drive through and I'm going to pick you guys up, and we're going to go to Stillwater. We need to. That ballpark is beautiful. That is just a beautiful setting for college baseball. I'm not sure where the Horns play on this year.
Can we fly? I mean, come on.
Believe me, if you get in the car, you're gonna. Yes, we'll do that.
Daddy Warbuck Hodo's plane. We'll get Hodo's plane and we'll fly up there. Hey, I did want to say this about Tim Tadlock and Tim, and I know Tim very well. but he is as good as anybody in the business in college baseball, in my opinion. If you had to start a college baseball team, he would be at the top of the list for, to go get to coach it. I think he's that good. So
yeah, I do. I agree
really
with you. And again, I think Texas State's going to be better. I've got to always plug them in, and we've got better arms. And I think the pieces, they brought in some really, really good looking freshmen. Holy cow. And they've got a shortstop who's one of my all-time favorite kids. He played for me my last year, Dalton Sheffield and John Wethridge. Those guys, and Wesley Faze, and those guys are really, really talented players. Wethridge was out almost all of last year with an injury. It was really unfortunate because you take your best player out of a team, it's really hard at a mid-majors, or if that's what we're called, or they're called, whatever. But the reality is that they're going to be a much, much better team. Steve and those guys did a great job recruiting and keeping their head above water and getting going and getting some momentum back after a tough year. And so I'm proud for them. They're going to be really exciting to watch and to pay attention to this year. They're doing something different this year that's fun. They're playing Texas in San Marcos on a Tuesday. And I always want to say this, thank you, Augie Garrido, for ever doing that, because he was the very first one that agreed to come to San Marcos and play us. Didn't have to, and I always appreciated and loved him for doing that. But they'll play in San Marcos on a Tuesday, and then on Wednesday they'll go to Austin and play.
Oh, that's great.
The next day. So you'll see back-to-back games, which is kind of cool, kind of different.
Yeah.
Double dip. That's good.
Yeah,
it'll be kind of fun. And so, look, and I know we're running over. I'm going to say this one more time today, and I'm going to say it 100 more times the rest of this year. This is going to be one of the greatest college baseball seasons in the history of college baseball. I truly believe it. Baseball is going to be played at its highest level. I truly believe Texas is going to be one of those teams at the end. A lot of great things have got to happen. Like last year, they got to stay healthy. Those guys stayed healthy last year. You have to stay healthy in college baseball to survive and win at a really high level. I think Texas has a chance to do that. I think there's some other teams who we'll talk about later on that I do across the country. They're going to be the same way. But I'm telling you right now, if you're a baseball fan, you need to get your honey out there to a college baseball game this year, because it is going to be some kind of fun to watch. And a great place to do it is in Austin and San Marcos, Texas this weekend when they get kicked off tomorrow.
There you go. Ty, you're getting everybody excited. Thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. It's always fun talking to you. You're one of my favorite people, and Lowery likes you too.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I was actually a little concerned whether I was really going to get to talk or not. And so I appreciated David. I love you, David. You know that. And I can't even say it enough that he did it. And
hey, I'm coachable.
You are coachable. You are. Now you can and if you want to end the show, you can turn that camera over towards your pictures of you playing again, because I think that's important. People need to know how good you really were. You're still one of the best left-handed hitters.
Edit that real quick. Where are you going to be this weekend? What's your schedule for ESPN?
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing tomorrow night. I'm on ESPN Plus for Texas State on Friday night. Saturday, I get to do my very first University of Texas baseball game on radio with Roger Wallace.
Oh, that's great.
I'm kind of fired up about that. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am. And then Sunday, I'll come back and do Texas State again. They're not doing TV on Saturday because our basketball team is in first place, and they have a basketball game on Saturday night, which is where I'm fixing to head to here in just a second as well. So, hey, thank you guys so much for having me on, and I really appreciate it. I look forward to doing some more with you guys as the year goes on.
Thanks, Ty. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.